Hi, Astro friends. This is Shelly again. And if you're wondering who I am and you're new here, my name is Shelly Overton. I'm an astrologer in Orlando, Florida. And I'm just popping in to give you a little heads up as to what's coming on a deep level. We've got a lot of shifts happening coming up, and I'm just drawn to post a video because all this information floods into my brain and I really need to share it with someone. So you're the lucky people who gets the benefit of my intuition. So what we're going to talk about today is the ingress of Saturn back into Pisces because it is now in Aries. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about Neptune going back into Pisces and what it means, but also the energies that are around and surrounding that, including what else might come up, which is Sun moving into Scorpio around the time that Neptune goes into Pisces. So a lot of times I talk about astrology with people, with lay people who maybe know a little about astrology or maybe don't know a whole lot. And the number one question I get, even with my clients, is what does that mean? And so I'm here to explain a little bit about what that means. And right now we have Saturn in Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. Oh, let me just make sure I've got some sound here. Got my phone recording me today, so I'll bring it a little closer to my mouth. Um, so Saturn in Aries. Saturn went into Aries earlier this year. I wrote all the dates down, so I'm just going to really quick look and see if I can find it for you. Okay, you gotta love it. I'm not even going to tell you what's already happened today. Very similar to what I'm about to tell you. So Saturn went into Aries. I did not write it down. Well, that kind of sucks. Let's look it up real quick. And of course, I don't have my glasses on right here, so we'll pop those on too. Yeah, so Saturn went into Aries right around the 26th of May. And so it means that we went over this energy once already, and now we are going back over the same point in the sky. So, boy, I really need to shoot a basics of astrology video because I have so much information in my brain. I don't want to fog and kind of bring this energy to a tangent, but I will shoot that soon. So anyway, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. In Western astrology, it begins the spring of the year. Western astrology uses the demarcation of the seasons as the setup for the system, as opposed to Indian or Vedic astrology, which is Eastern astrology, that is based on the actual planetary positions of where everything is in the sky current day, which is why when we talk about astrology, sometimes people are like, that's not really where it's at in the sky. It's not based on the actuality of the planet in the sky. It's based on the derivation of the system, meaning it's always the first day of spring for 0 degrees Aries, first day of summer for 0 degrees Cancer, first day of fall, September 21st-ish, for the first day of Libra, and then the same for winter and December 21st. So that's how it's set up. So the degrees of the zodiac all relate to the seasons. So when we see, and I have to tell you, this is a kind of a collective agreement for this particular system. So Western astrology, if you practice it, because the collective agreement around the system works when we read that chart, it shows up in our real world. And same for Vedic. It doesn't matter what system, it doesn't matter what religion or, all the things. It's basically your belief system is self-reinforced. So that being said, which I hate that saying, and there I went and said it anyway. So moving on, we'll use that one. Moving on to Saturn and Aries. When Saturn was at the last degree, like I said, May, of Pisces, we felt this deeper emotional purging, so to speak. And then it moved into Aries, and then there was this kind of relief from the emotional clutter and intensity. and then it went into Aries. That probably was short-lived, that relief, now going from water to fire, because the water gets you in your feelings. And let's be honest, when you're in your feelings, sometimes it can feel like you're not moving anywhere and you're really bogged down with your emotion and you can't move forward in your life. The 29th degree of Pisces is very much that energy, because that is the anaretic degree. It is the final ending of all the energy that is put into that part of the sky. And it culminates, I always think of it kind of like the green flash before the sun goes below the horizon. That 29th degree will kind of like make a final push in the energy it's in whatever sign it is. So in this case, it's at the last degree of the last sign of the zodiac, which means we are ending something. It is the ending of a story. And the ending, in this case, of an emotional, sentimental story. It can be the Piscean energy of codependence, addiction, delusion. And I say delusion lightly, and I probably shouldn't, but when I say delusion, it just refers to the idea that Pisces is really very much into fantasy. And the more I grow spiritually, I don't necessarily think fantasy is just made up. I think that the world is very much a malleable place. And so when you go through the signs, um, you get to Pisces, it is very much in the vision, in the creativity, and they are very good in their imagination. So they're very connected to spiritual energies. And so that means that because the Piscean energy can very clearly in its mind's eye see how things could be, they sometimes get derailed to reality. And of course, the opposite sign to Pisces is Virgo. And that means that Virgo is very practical, pragmatic, and a realist traditionally. Unless you're like me, I have 4 planets in Virgo and opposite of Saturn and Pisces. So I get kind of a broad range of reality and imagination, which actually makes me a pretty good artist. So Pisces can very clearly see the vision of how things could be. So it does make them really good at art or anything that needs a visionary person, such as filmmaking, writing, photography, to be a creative photographer or creative writer. So that energy was in our lives for 2.5 years as Saturn went through Pisces right before it went into Aries. Now let's talk about Aries a little bit for a minute. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So it is the initiator. It is a cardinal energy along with the beginning signs of the season. So Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. So we have that initiating energy, that drive to make something new or to begin or to thrust out into the world, into creativity. And it is a very passionate sign. I don't know that I even personally really assigned it passion, but historically, and also in Vedic astrology, Mars rules the energy of Scorpio. In modern day astrology, in Western astrology, Pluto rules that sign. So I always do more modern astrology. I look at Pluto as my ruler as a Scorpio rising, but Mars is a secondary ruler. It's not to be ignored. So Mars is the ruler of Aries in modern astrology and traditional astrology, and Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn, another initiating presence, another initiating planet, but it's also about restriction or structure. Depending on how you look at it, I am a very strongly Aquarian person with 4 of my Virgo planets in the Aquarius house. I have, including the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus, in the Aquarius house, and it's pretty close to my sun. So I'm very adamantly Scorpionic as well as Uranian or Aquarian in my energy. So I came into this world to make a difference, to make a change for the collective. And Saturn, as the ruler of Capricorn and as the entity we're talking about in Aries, can be very formal and literal. in its energy. It wants to give ownership and responsibility where it belongs. So that means that we have to deal with all the systems and all the structures of our behavior. Aries, on the other hand, is a very strong energy of brashness, of aggression, of assertion. It asserts itself out into the world. It is the formal ruler of men, as opposed to, say, Venus, which is Libra's and Taurus's ruler, feminine. So you have Venus, the book Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus is very apt when you study astrology. So that Martian energy wants to just put forth into the world and create, but it can also be destructive in its negative sense or its lower ego sense. It is a destructive energy. And so Mars, Aries are synonymous in archetype. Aries, where Saturn is, it means that we have to, as a society, we have to look at our behavior in the masculine sense. Men and women, where do we see the traditional view of the male energy putting itself forth in society? And that means construction, creativity, absolutely, but creativity in a fiery sense. And I'm putting forth my idea with passion. It rules the energy of emergency workers, of the police, of firefighters, really strong with firefighters. It is anything, I think of motorcycles, I think of, well, arms. I'll say arms, instead of things that are particularly used for warlike energy, because I don't want to get flagged on the video. But arms are all under Aries guidance and umbrella. So having that strong passion and drive to create something new is where we've been since Saturn went into Aries. Now we are back at that early 0 degree or very close to it as this video is being recorded. And so we're at that expression of the newness, that expression of creativity, that passionate break point. And as we get retrograded right back to that cusp on the edge of 29 Pisces and 0 Aries, we feel tickles from our spirit guides and angels on our nose. Anyway, that's great. It just means they're here with us. So maybe Archangel Ariel, who I've been talking to lately, is here. Ariel is the energy of Aries and drive and the goddess warrior. Anyway, we get to that degree. And so what you have is pretty much where the rivers flow out fresh water into the ocean and the salt water. And so it's that foggy in between area. The brackish meets the clean and clear, and it creates fog. I mean, that's kind of an easy way to say it. It creates fog, it creates passion, it creates frustration because you have water and fire. Water obviously puts out fire. Fire can evaporate water. So they have this kind of a frustrating energy in the center of it all. And that's where we're heading over the course of this time. Again, September 2nd is the day Saturn goes into Pisces. So as we approach the end of August and the beginning of September, it's going to increase that masculine passion or the masculine drive in all of us, but probably much more felt by steadfast male energy in society. And then wherever it falls in your chart, we're going to see that come out of our lives. I personally have it at the end degrees of the fifth house, the Leo energy of the fifth house with my Pisces going into my work house. So it can be really frustrating when you're dealing with wanting to make something new. And this is really kind of another reason I came on is you're trying to make something new and create a forward momentum that is being thwarted by these retrogrades. And it's personally some of the most frustrating things for me as well, because my Mars falls at the end degrees of a water sign, which is Cancer. But my Venus is just over the cusp into a fire sign. What did I say? Yeah, water sign of Cancer. And then right over the cusp is my Venus at the beginning degrees of Leo. And so I have that frustration of vision, of emotion clouded in my chart, and then wanting the drive and the move forward, the desire of Venus momentum to go forward. So with that energy in my house of work, it's really altering my emotions to try and cope and deal with where I'm heading in my career, in my work life, and also in my health. I've been dealing with that as well in these last few months with some shoulder pain and various other things. And so it's really starting to shift how I work, because I've had other endeavors that I do to earn money thwarted by the physical restrictions of shoulder pain and wrist pain. So we can feel this. Pisces is an opposite sign to Virgo, which rules health and hygiene. So when we have strong planetary aspects to Pisces, we can see health issues popping up. And I find it really interesting that the health issues are related very much to emotion, because that's what Pisces is about. Pisces is about a deeper, hidden emotion that's being expressed through the body. So if you've been having health issues, Pisces energy can be emotional. It can be a sense of fogginess in our brains. It is it's a water sign which rules emotion, and it's also very deep, like the depth of the ocean, or any ocean, depth of the oceans. So you go deep, and if you are in your ego, you don't always want to go deep. You want to stay fairly shallow, because going deep is a threat to the ego. So we're going to have ego issues because Aries rules the ego. Aries being the first sign of the zodiac, when the spirit comes into the body and settles in, the ego is what keeps it moving forward and driven in the material world. So we're going to see this tug of war going on, basically, between the emotional life and spirit, and kind of deeper sage wisdom, with the newness of a child, an infant being born, who just feels the passion, feels the energy through the body, through the physicality. Aries rules athletes. It rules anything where you would take physical action and drive. So many things. It rules self-interest. It rules construction, building, banging, hitting drums. Something that puts action into the physical world. So as we come to this retrograde, we've also got Neptune moving into Pisces on October 22nd. So just a few weeks away as well. And that same day we have Sun in Scorpio. So we've got a double whammy of that emotional energy coming also in October. So this is pretty much why I was driven to make this video, is because I'm feeling it very strongly in my own life. I'm sure that everybody else out there has some variation of this energy, because it's not a light energy. Saturn is the shift and change of structures, and it can go from sign to sign to sign, but when it's going from the end of a cycle, the end of the zodiac, into the beginning of the zodiac, it's finishing a 28-year cycle. That's a very long amount of time to process through each of the signs, and growing through time, through our own lives, having Saturn challenge us in each of the signs, and then culminate the story of what we've learned through the totality of Pisces. And Pisces energy basically embodies every sign. So those of you with strong Pisces are going to feel this deep emotional angst. Like I said, I have strong Pisces in my chart because I have Saturn and Chiron in Pisces. And those of you with beginning energy of Aries or strong Mars positions, also going to be feeling this wherever your Pisces Aries cusp is in your chart. It is about the difference between the dream and the reality of making it happen. Neptune wants to keep the dream alive in Aries, being in Aries, but Saturn's saying you don't get to just dream it now, you have to have the action. Because of the retrograde, I'll explain retrogrades a bit now too. So a retrograde is the energy from where we are on Earth, looking out at the sky around the Earth, which is the zodiac belt. And, for astrologers, the sky is divided into 12 parts, and each part is a segment of sky ruled by the energy of the zodiac and the constellations in that part of the sky. As you look out on the sky, the planets, from our perspective, are going around the sun, which is out there. You can see it rise in the morning and set in the evening. And so all the planets are moving around the sun and sometimes farther out behind us in an orbit. Because it's called heliocentric, which means the Earth is at the center. We look out from Earth to the sky. The sun is not where we are, the sun is out there. So all the planets go around the sun, they don't go around the Earth, but we can see them as if they are going around the Earth. And that's what we observe in astrology. So when the planets are going forward from our perspective in the sky, remember they're going around the sun. So they're coming through our sky in a forward motion. There's a portion of the year where the majority of the planets appear to be going backwards because they're in the part of the orbit that comes around from us, moving backwards. That part of the perspective or the visual difference between what we think is going on and what's actually going on. We can explain a retrograde, but it appears to be going backwards. Even though it is still going forward, that withdrawal of energy from the perspective, from the placement in the orb, affects us. It's like the energy pulls back, because if you've got that orb coming around on that edge of it, it's kind of in that part where, from our perspective, it's not really coming forward or backwards, so to speak. It kind of looks like it can be stationary, which is the outside point where it actually retrogrades, and then it continues around the orb, appearing to go backwards. So I hope I've explained that somewhat coherently. And because of that, those periods of retrograde are when we feel disconnected. We feel like we have to go back over things. It pulls the energy back from the planet in our psyches. And even though we don't necessarily consciously go through our day going, oh, Pluto's retrograde or Neptune's retrograde, because I don't think commonly we don't know that, but we know Mercury retrograde. And it's getting more and more common in the collective to speak about, oh, Mercury's retrograde. We know what that means. But the other planets go retrograde as well, and some not as often. Venus doesn't go retrograde as often, and Mars goes retrograde every 2 years. So we don't have it every year. But these planets do retrograde. And what happens in the retrograde in a chart is that there's a period of time when the planet moves over the degrees it will eventually be retrograde over. And that is the incoming shadow period that we reference as astrologers. It's the time when these are the issues we're going to be dealing with during the retrograde. These are the themes. These are the difficulties or the positivities, and things are moving a certain way. Then the planet slows down and goes retrograde over those degrees. And when it retrogrades, it is a time of altering and reviewing what happened during those degrees. So whatever the themes were, those are coming back, but they're coming back for adjustment. And so when we go back the second time, it's like leaving the house without your water bottle. And you're like, oh man, I forgot my water bottle. So that's the shadow period. You're going out, you forgot your water bottle. You turn around to go back and get your water bottle, and you get to your apartment or your house and you find the water bottle. That's the retrograde period. Okay, we are adjusting. Then the planet goes direct back over those same degrees. And that's the point where actually, during the retrograde, not only do you find the water bottle, you realize it's not full and you have to add water. That's the retrograde. And then it goes forward, and then you walk out the door now fully armed for the future with what you're dealing with. That's the energy of what we're dealing with in every retrograde. but the themes of where they're at in the sky and what they mean alter depending on which planet it is, depending on what sign it's in when it does this, and where it falls in each of our charts, which is why you call an astrologer or get a reading, because that astrologer knows how to interpret all those planetary positions and can tell you, oh, I see this happening. This is what you're having to deal with. And you're like, yeah, but when's it going to end? I can't take it. Oh, I see it's going to shift and change at this date. So astrology is really good for timing. And I found that to be the truth over, 30 plus years. I've done astrology 48 years and studied it, but I've done readings for over 30 years. So I guess at this point, it's good to tell you, if you're interested in a reading, you can get my contact information below and plan to get a reading through my website, angeliczodiac.com. But right now, this specific retrograde is even more profound because when it retrogrades, when Saturn retrogrades, when Neptune retrogrades, it's not only going over a cusp, which can be very potent anywhere in the zodiac, but it's going from the beginning degrees back into the last degrees, the end of a cycle, and then back into the first degrees. So I've got chills with this. This is the energy of ending basically a 30-year story, and probably even more. I haven't even looked. Neptune takes a very long time to go through our charts, longer than even a Uranus cycle. So Uranus goes about 85 years through all the signs. So Neptune's longer than that, which means very few of us have ever been at this degree of Neptune, if at all. Because, I'd have to look up when exactly the last time Neptune was here. I will do that right now. Let me just pause for a second to do that. Okay, so the last time Neptune was in Aries, it started in April 13th of 1861. 1861. So nobody was alive then. Well, nobody now who is alive now was alive then. Of course, there were people alive then. Um, through April 7th, 1875. So 16 years in each sign. And that's a pretty long time. So yeah, we are definitely dealing with this intense energy of figuring out what we're doing in the collective masculine right now. That also means that, if you think about it, 1861, so that particular cycle was over the Civil War in America. And so it kind of gives you an idea of the power of Aries Neptune. All the babies born with Aries and Neptune are going to have kind of a warlike energy somewhere in their charts, somewhere in their lives. They are going to feel that passion and idealization of drive to create, to express in the masculine form, in what is traditionally the masculine form. So that being expressed, because I don't want to say that phrase, so saying that, we are finding that that is kind of the case. We have in America, we have a government that is starting to withdraw rights of women currently and effectively erasing the history out of all of government pages of the contributions of women at NASA, suffragette movements, whatever. They're purging from the websites, the government websites, what's traditionally, well, not even traditionally, I mean, of course, hard won place in the history books, and it's just disappearing. So this is an adjustment period. We move forward. We made the motions towards future endeavors and understanding our motivations in expression, in passion. And now we are going back to review. Do we really want this? Is this something pardon me, something in my eye? Is this really what we want as a collective? Neptune is very much the collective, is the subconscious and the psyche. And so as Neptune goes back into Aries, again, October 22nd, and it will last through the beginning of the year. Haven't got that date for you, but let's see, if it's October, it's probably going to be around March that we're going to see it go direct again and finally get back into Aries next year, and it won't go back into Pisces again in our lifetimes. Saturn will not go back into Pisces once it gets out. Again, also the beginning of the year, probably closer to January, mid-January. It won't go back in for another 28 years, or let me see, yeah, roughly 27, 28 years. So, if you're alive in 30 years, which I want to be, you will see it again. And we will go over this energy, but there will be different players at that time. There won't be the same planetary positions triggering the same energy coming out. So we are very much in a moment in time of shift and change ideologically. And this, even though it can be really difficult on a personal level, wherever the Saturn, Pisces, Neptune, Pisces, Neptune, Aries, Saturn, Aries energy is in your chart, it is a time of shift in our personal lives, but also collectively. And that shift can go from a sense of righteousness with Saturn and Aries to, oh my God, I didn't realize that what I felt is affecting people on a collective stage, which is what Saturn going back into Pisces will give us. It's spiritual. It's, believe it or not, it is transcendent. It's esoteric. It will bring about an awareness of our psychic energies, of our connectedness to each other on the human scale. So while it's deeply intense and deeply distressing at times, it will bring awareness and enlightenment. In its more difficult sense, I mean, definitely want to give a heads up to flooding if it falls somewhere in your home sector. So let me think. If you've got Pisces, Aries down there, you've probably got Sagittarius rising. So you might have difficult, especially since Sagittarius rules houses and homes or real estate. There could be some flooding coming in for you in that regard. It is deep sentimental shifts and changes. It can affect the people that are still around us and those who choose to not be in this plane anymore, natural or unnatural causes. So definitely by next year, I think a few of the people that we are very attached to emotionally will have decided to transition. And so know that that's part of this energy. It's part of a greater storyline of cycles. And with that, I want to wish you well. Again, if you have any interest in finding out more, please contact me through angeliczodiac.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. And please do like, comment, share, subscribe if you want to get more content. Thank you. Have a great day. And please do take care and talk to people, connect to people. That's what we're meant to do. Bye.